My name is Lucas Foglia, and I'm a photographer. I make photographs about people's relationship to the natural world. So I bought Geomancy earlier this year, and I've been looking at it a number of times over the recent weeks during the shelter-in-place mandate, in part because it reminds me to notice small details in the natural world. I think oftentimes photographers can focus on dominant events, paying attention to stories that are already in the news, that are already at the front of our consciousness. With Michael, I feel like he's taking things that I would otherwise pass by and showing them in such a way that they have meaning.
And I think that meaning is really amplified in this book too, through how he places one picture after the next. So let's open it up.
So the book opens with what seems like a very simple landscape of the cut of a machine onto the side of a hill, with the horizon line interacting with the hill, where the light bleaches over the tip of it. I just read a wonderful book by Rob Moore titled On Trails, and it's about the history of paths. And one of his core points is that if you're in a landscape anywhere on Earth and you want to go somewhere, chances are there's been another person who's wanted to go to that same place in a similar way. So if you look around, there's likely to be a path there already. And so when I look at this, I say someone wanted to go somewhere, I'm really not sure where. And the photograph of it is both completely clear and compositionally compelling and somehow inexplicable.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves me asking questions and wanting to still look at it for the answers. And
Yeah, it's a perfect place to start, I think. He's showing us a path, but telling us it's not going to be straightforward.
The second image is, again, completely clear. You see a rock surface, or maybe a wood surface. It's not totally understandable if it's rock or wood. And there's a vine coming down one side and going into a hole, and then coming out of a hole on a different side and going into another hole. And it's just playful and beautiful. And again, inexplicable.
These are like the natural equivalent of desire lines. And then everything gets turned upside down. And we have to turn the book in our hands.
Yeah, what do you think about that idea for the design, to not flip the pictures but make the person flip the book?
I mean, it puts you in the landscape. You're a participant in a way that just repeating the same motion over and over again doesn't require that same commitment from you, but you really have to be part of it here. What do you think?
I struggle with it because on one level, I know a lot of people are just going to flip the book and not turn the book to see the pictures in there for intended orientation. And also, it does what so many of his photographs do so well, which is demand of the viewer an attention and a focus towards things we don't normally focus on. Yeah, it's like a puppet show is magic if you don't see the strings. And this book is about the strings.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, this is a key image. And then we get to stick with this orientation for the next page.
So he's got this mystical, almost spiritual thing going on in a lot of the photographs where you see circles repeated. And this almost looks like it could be an altar out in a landscape. It's so perfectly dark with such perfect detail. It's also just technically really hard to do, both in a photograph and then translating a photograph to a print.
Mm-hmm. Book. I love that more and more detail emerges as my eyes adjust to it.
Mm-hmm. Most people are frustrated by the limitations of photography, right? Whether something's overexposed, underexposed. He uses those limitations to add meaning to the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
My sense of this work and Michael's perspective is that there's not a binary between people and nature.
Mm-hmm.
That there's one world, and we're a part of that world. And he's going to photograph us and the world and the surfaces in the world with one eye, regardless of whether they're made by people or made by other elements.
Mm-hmm.
The photographs, like it feels like a song in a way where the messages in the pictures sort of, or the themes in the pictures sort of repeat over time.
Yeah.
They're grouped intentionally, so it sort of repeats in odd intervals that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Different types of scenes and ways of dealing with scenes. And I think by doing that, I keep on looking at each one of them. Whereas if all the night scenes were grouped together,
yeah,
I would immediately start flipping through a little bit more quickly.
But right, you never know exactly what's next. Like maybe this is a rhyme on those two lighter colored pictures.
It makes me turn back. Like I look at this one first, I look at the next page, and then I go back. The book has intentionally not set up any narrative sequences until now.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I flip back and forth, it feels like it's making me stop again.
Mm-hmm.
One of the photographs that make me wonder about his own intervention into the place he's photographing is the one of the side of the cactus,
mm-hmm.
with the 4 things sticking out of it. And that like beautiful line of a horizon coming out between the middle of the gray. I don't know if there's a rock, those are wood pieces. I imagine he stuck them in, or maybe someone else stuck them in. I kind of wonder, like, who wants to deface a cactus, of all things? When the book started, it took very discernible landscapes and showed some inexplicable things happening within them.
Right.
And then over the course of the book, the entire landscape becomes inexplicable. You don't know scale, you don't know orientation, the light, the time of day, the season, the subject.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he edited it such that there were anchor points that like showed you where you were, showed me where I was, made me feel grounded. And now I just get to wander in this,
Mm-hmm.
to wander into weirdness. The inside of my head sometimes feels like a storage closet with different boxes, and there's like a box for happy things and a box for sad things and a box for all the different emotions in between those two. And when I see something, if I can immediately put it in one box, it's easy to forget. It just like gets lost in the mix of the happy things, or like lost in the mix of like the banal walk on the way to pick up something that I use daily.
Yeah.
And when something's unboxable, if it sort of fits in multiple places, but I don't quite know where, I remember it because I have to think about where to put it, and I can't put it anywhere, so it just stays there in my head. And I think that's also what his photographs do, is they don't feel boxable to me. They're not quiet landscapes. They're not activist reinterpretations of of our role and responsibility for the environment. They talk about the environment. They talk about the landscape. They talk about his authorship. They talk about photography. But it's not one thing.
Thank you so much, Lucas, for taking the time to talk to me about this extraordinary book. It's Michael Lundgren's Geomancy, published by Stanley Barker in 2019.